Hey, uh, let's see here. I'm gonna make sure functioning properly. So wanted to do a video for. I'm kind of playing catch up on. That doesn't seem to be working well. Playing catch up on doing videos about creating comics, and the last post I did for my Patreon was for finding an artist. So I wanted to kind of dive into that a little bit for you guys here, and bear with me while I pull up my old post so I can hit the highlights of it all. So let's see here. So we talked about getting inspiration for writing and some of the writing process itself so far. But really, the tricky part as just being the writer for comics is finding someone to bring that vision uh, alive visually. So for me, I wasn't really in to the comic scene at all prior to writing stuff for Ultralife and Zed and another series that didn't pan out for me. But so I kind of dove into online groups on Facebook and other social media sources, and started to talk to people about just what the process was. And the big thing I did is I posted to a online bulletin board. The one I used was called guru.com. It's guru.com. Essentially, it's a bulletin board for artists, freelancers. You post stuff and you get responses. So I posted a little classified ad about some of the concepts that I had, and like little breakdowns of what the genre was, like a little blurb of the story itself, and asking for just samples of artwork to see if I could get something that matched up to the style that I wanted. And I got a pretty good number of responses, and I sifted through and talked to a couple people, and I landed on Katrina Kunstman, who she had a very painterly style that I liked, and I wanted that to be part of Ultralife because of it being a very dramatic and emotional story. I wanted to bring that out with that type of art style. So I reached out to her, and essentially I had squirreled away about $500 to $700 to put towards some conceptual artwork. So I had a couple people work up character sketches, but the ones that I liked really came from Katrina. And then I threw some more money at getting a mock-up cover and a few pages finished so that I had something to bring to the table. This is essentially how I did not having money to pay for an artist. This is essentially what I brought to the table to Kickstarter, that the various artwork that we made from that $700, and just me describing what it was. And I built a bit of a trailer uh, as well to kind of build up some excitement behind the story. Um, the tricky part of finding an artist is finding somebody that you can work with that takes direction the way that you want them to take direction. I was very fortunate with Katrina because a lot of what I had in my head came out of her uh, the way that I wanted it to be seen, almost without me having to give direction. Um, the biggest thing working with another artist, I think, would be, or working with an artist, especially for me, I'm working with someone remotely. I'm not sitting down with them at all. We use Dropbox. We go back and forth where we need to about she gives me rough lines, and if there's things that need to be changed early on, we take care of that so that we're not coming back later. But my biggest takeaway with going into getting an artist is make sure that you have money to pay someone. Don't go looking for an artist. I know it's hard to come up with money for these things, and I was fortunate to have some set aside for something like this. But you're not going to get good artwork for nothing. And even if they're willing to work at a lower rate just for some conceptual stuff to get things rolling for you, you can reach out to people and you can ask them. And just don't get in over your head. A lot of people are willing to work with you, especially in the indie scene. So let me look a little more at my notes here about the process. And I want to pull up my social media feed that's got this stuff going on it, just in case someone wants to throw questions at me during this live stream as well. But so let's see. I talked about finding somebody by offering money. There will be people that can work for free, maybe from groups and things. But if you want something professionally done and you don't want to get the runaround by somebody that is not getting paid, just make sure you have some money to put into the project before you dive into looking for an artist, because most people aren't going to take you seriously unless you have something to put towards making this. There are plenty of people on that guru.com, and I'm sure there's other freelancing bulletin boards that you can use. But just make sure you're clear about what you're looking for, and you'll get responses. And make sure you get back to everybody that's giving you a response, whether it's a no or a yes. It's always nice. So I wrote a synopsis for that and put the ad up. Found Katrina through that. It's amazing that it worked as well as it did, because I had never really worked with an artist on something like this. My big takeaway looking back at it now is I should have maybe dug a little longer. I'm really happy with what Katrina did with the book. But I feel like there's a lot of artists out there, and I was in a rush. I felt like I was in a rush because I was in a bad place in my day job, and I just felt like I needed to get out. So I found someone. Katrina was really eager to work on this, and she was willing to work with somebody that didn't know anything about the industry, basically. So that's one of the reasons I ended up with her. But if you educate yourself a little more about the process by watching videos like this, by joining groups, by listening to some other podcasts and things, I think you'll be better off when you dive in to find an artist. So that would be my big takeaway from this. Looking back now, I've worked with a couple other artists as well now. I've worked with Marcelo Villa on Nook. I kind of got to know him online through groups and through working on some smaller projects together that I threw at him. And we just kind of, his style ended up matching what I was looking for Nook too. And he was willing to kind of dive into something that he wasn't necessarily comfortable with that comic, because it was a style that was different for him. But it's good to find people that are also willing to work with you, even if you're kind of new to everything. So you might not be getting super pros like the big names, and listen, like, there's people that are new to this that get bigger names to work on stuff because they have money to throw at it. But I didn't have a lot of money to throw at it at the time. And I felt like it was more beneficial to help someone new or someone that was trying to make a name for themselves in their own way, and then we could kind of build our success together. So I mean, I worked with bigger artists doing variant covers and whatnot for issues and stuff too. But honestly, like, just be careful and make sure that you don't get in over your head, because it's expensive to make comic books, and that's why not a lot of them are being made at high quality, and it takes a long time for other ones to get done because people just simply don't have the time to throw at doing 30 to 100, and well, Alter Life ended up being 188 pages in the end, and it took us 3 years to finish it. So I mean, this is a long game to be playing, and unless you have a lot of money to put into the project, you need to take a step back and take a breath and realize that this isn't something that's going to happen overnight. So, if you have questions in the future about how I worked with my artist, or how I found an artist, I'm going to go into a little more about how I work remotely with artists on books too. But I kind of wanted to give you a glimpse into how I found my artist this time, and hopefully that helps you guys a little bit, because for me it was a new thing to even uh, dive into trying to find somebody that would work on a full book. I clearly Katrina was thinking we were working on one issue. My bigger plan was to have a 5 issue series finished, and eventually we did. So just make sure you're clear about goals and timelines. And oh, another big thing, make sure you have a contract made out and sent and signed for any artwork that you have done, for any books that you have done, just so everything is transparent, to everyone about rights, about what you can do with the artwork. Because if you want to be even just be like use conceptual stuff for stickers and stuff, you just don't want to step on people's toes later down the line. And I mean, a lot of times artists are okay once they kind of sign off on giving you things, but you never know. Like, if the book gets big, and you never know who you're dealing with. Like, I can only read into someone online as much as I can. So over time you get to trust these people. But working on one book that we were only really working on it for a few months, it's hard to really grasp their work ethic without putting a contract out there that's like, we need to have this done by this time. Like, once we actually ran the Kickstarter and were funded, I had to make sure we had a contract that was like, I need artwork done by this point of time, this many pages, blah 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 blah. I'll go into all that stuff later too, but there's just a lot of ins and outs. And I mean, the first key to making the book outside of writing it is finding an artist to write or to work on it. So um, just try to take your time and make sure you find someone that matches your book well, because if it ends up being an ongoing series or a longer series, and you get halfway into it and that person's not going to work out for you, it's going to be not only a shock for readers if the artwork completely changes, but it can be a shock to your wallet if you end up needing to redo art, or if the person's rates were different in book one and they charge more later. So just do your research. That's a big thing I say to everybody working on comics and working on crowdfunding. Do your research, double check everything, make sure you're open when you're talking to people, and they know exactly what you're looking for. That's really all I have for finding an artist. That's the way I did it. By no means is that the way everyone should be doing it. That's what worked for me. The artists I work with now are people that I've gotten to know by doing shows, by joining groups, by knowing that they worked on projects of other writers that I know and they're trustworthy. So that's not a bad way to do it too. If you join these groups and you see books that are done by an artist that you like their style, talk to the person they worked with. Make sure uh, they are a quality creator. You know, that they have good turnaround time. They communicate well. Never hurts to ask. Some people might not have time to answer these questions, but most indie creators are willing to help. So that's it for now, guys. I will likely be doing more of these. I kind of got slowed down because I've been running Kickstarters and doing lots of shows, which I have a few more before the end of the year. But next month, I'll probably be doing something more about the collaborative effort between two people through uh, the internet, because all the people I've worked with have been remote. I've not worked directly like in the same city with anybody. So we'll get more into that later. Thanks anybody tuning in. Thanks whoever's checking this out later. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.